We are price checking, gentlemen. Share with us your favorite plays in the following price ranges on tonight's 10-game main slate. Pitcher, north of 8K. Who's it going to be, Paul?
I like a couple of guys. Frankie Montas of the A's for $9,500. Emerson, he's allowed opposing batting average of only .223 with 73 strikeouts and only 18 walks over his last 61 innings pitched. So that's quite a bit of dominance there. 6 straight starts over 6 innings pitched. We like that when we pick a player in DFS, and 3 of those starts, 10-plus strikeouts. He faces Dallas Keuchel, who has a 5 ERA over his last 10 starts with 12 homers allowed over his last 54 at-bats as part of a 137 whip in that stretch too. But the guy that I like best in this slate is Wade Miley, priced at only $8,200. He's 3-0 with a 3.14 ERA in his last 10 outings, which is better than most of the starters in recent performances of late on this slate. And he's only allowed 5 homers in his 57 innings pitched. I like the fact that he keeps the ball in the park too. He's facing a depleted lineup of the Cubs, which is on an 11-game losing streak. His mound opponent is Justin Steele, who's just pitched his first game over 5 innings pitched, and it didn't go well, allowing 2 homers and only 1 strikeout. He's gone at, and I like the high win probability here because of all those stats favoring Wade Miley tonight. It's a compelling case in my opinion.
All right, Matty, you got 6 pitchers to choose from here. North of 8K, who's your guy?
I think this is kind of a tough slate. Like, I usually have more of a clear-cut take on who my favorite is, but I think Garrett Cole and Kevin Gausman at the top are both totally fine, and I think Wade Miley and Touki Toussaint in that second tier are both totally fine. So honestly, like, I don't have an opinion that really probably deviates from the norm too much. I do feel like the industry at large will be expecting Garrett Cole to have a limited pitch count tonight, and I don't know that we know for sure that that's true. So the upside with Cole might just be so much higher than that of Kevin Gausman, who has a much tougher matchup against the Mets. Cole is going against a team that basically has one great hitter in Shohei Ohtani with the Angels, but then a lineup that has a lot of strikeouts after him. So I feel like Cole could be under-owned, at least where like Gausman and Cole are similar ownership, but I think Cole's upside is much, much higher. So if I'm paying up, I feel like Garrett Cole all the way at the top could go overlooked also because the Coors Field game is pretty expensive and it's a little bit harder than normal to fit Cole in tonight.
Erik, how difficult of a decision was this for you?
Quite difficult. I can't really say I like any of the expensive pitchers or any of the cheap ones today. Pretty big red flags with everybody. Garrett Cole hasn't looked like himself since the start of June. 4.68 ERA for what's now a 2.5-month stretch, and he's coming off of a positive COVID case. Can't say I would use him with confidence. Kevin Gausman, ERA over 5 in his last 5 starts, and Wade Miley is Wade Miley. Was enough reason not to like him, I think. So Frankie Montas, I think going against the White Sox, which is a red flag in and of itself, I think that's the best choice here at 9,500, just because how good he's been really over his last 6 starts. 35% strikeout rate, 6% walk rate over that stretch. That's ace level stuff. That's what you'd expect to get out of a Cole or a Gausman. Montas is the only guy actually pitching like that now. So even though he's got the toughest matchup, I think with the red flags surrounding just about everybody else, he'd be my top choice.
Matt, a lot of options here when we're talking about paying up for a hitter. So give me a dude who's going to cost you 5K or more.
So I think the position we have to start with is shortstop. And even though Fernando Tatis Jr. is playing in the outfield right now, he's still shortstop only eligible for DFS. He's 6,100, and I feel like he takes up a lot of the ownership at this position. And then you have Jake Cronenworth at 4,400 on the same team, who also is just shortstop only. So I think Trevor Story has to go overlooked because the Padres, who are in this great spot against Antonio Senzatella at Coors Field, have 2 shortstops in their lineup. And Trevor Story on the other side of this game might only end up being the 3rd or 4th highest on shortstop on the slate. He might be single-digit ownership. I think that's a pretty reasonable scenario. And he's facing Ryan Weathers, who isn't any good in the games at Coors Field. So I think Story for 5,400 is a really good choice. I think Trey Turner, same price range, is a really good choice. But basically, at the high end of the salary range, I'm looking to find some leverage at the shortstop position. I think Story and maybe Turner are the 2 guys I like the most.
Erik, I say give me a hitter over 5K, and you say?
I say Ozzie Albies at 5,200. Anytime you can get Albies against a lefty, it's hard to turn that down. Over the course of his career, He's got a 150 WRC plus against lefties. That's the same as Aaron Judge's career mark. Granted, they get there in slightly different ways, but just to give you an idea of how good he is against southpaws. Then against righties, he's got a career WRC plus of just 96, which is the same as Kevin Kiermaier's career numbers. So when you can get a guy who's Aaron Judge sometimes and Kevin Kiermaier the rest of the time, I think you got to jump on him. Against a guy like Braxton Garrett, who's been okay, 4.65 ERA. The peripherals look a little bit better than that, but he doesn't stand out at all in any one area. And Albies has hitting quite well lately with 5 homers in his last 7 games. So I think this is a perfect opportunity to use him, and I don't think 5,200 is too expensive at all.
Paul, which direction you going in here?
Emerson, you know I come from the school of what have you done for me lately? I've got 3 guys for you. I like Starling Marte for $5,900 based on his platoon advantage that he'll enjoy against Dallas Keuchel. I panned him earlier. For his part, Marte has been on an 18 for 48 tear. That's good for a 375 batting average. And head-to-head in a very small sample, Marte has the edge over Keuchel with a 3 for 6 mark, including a home run. I also like Brandon Lowe for $5,300 with his current 12 for 39 streak, which includes 6 extra base knocks. And he'll have a platoon advantage against Matt Harvey, who has reverted to his mediocre form over his last 2 starts after showing brief signs of life. You know, I tell it like it is. There's very, very little left in that guy's tank.
That's
Joey
right.
Vado, the Canadian, has been killing it over his last 10 starts with a 1.112 OPS over his last 37 at-bats, including 4 homers. Among his last 12 hits, he faces Steele, and I also shared his recent struggles with you earlier. Vado cost you $5,800 tonight.
That's why we love you, Paul. Always telling us how it is. Never beating around the bush. Best value bat for the slate, Erik. Who is it in your eyes?
I'll tell it like it how it isn't and say that Luke Voigt is the best hitter of all time. Well, that's not true. But he was the top home run hitter last year, and you can get him for just $3,600. Obviously, there's reasons why he's down in that range. He hasn't been that good this year. He's just been beat up, 3 trips to the injured list. Just has hit nowhere like he was last year. Specifically, he's just not making nearly as much contact, striking out over 31% of the time after having just a 23.1% strikeout rate last season. But his barrel rate is right in line with where it's been the last 2 years. So when he is making contact, he still has that same pop that, again, gave him the home run lead last season. I don't know if he's just so beat up that 3,600 is the range he deserves to be in, or if he's just never had the chance to get things going through that constant on and off the injured list. But he showed something last night, 3 for 5 with a homer. That's a step in the right direction. Then this is a guy who would normally be going in the 5,000 range that you can get for about 1,500 cheaper than that. I like him, especially tonight at hitter-friendly Yankee Stadium with the platoon advantage against Jose Suarez. He's got a decent 3.90 ERA on the season, but most of that comes from his work as a reliever early in the year. Since moving to the rotation, he's got a 5.79 ERA in 6 starts. So give me Voigt until he returns to the price range you'd expect him to be based on the guy we know he can be over the last few years.
Paul, who is your value bat?
I have 3 of them for you again in this range. Will Myers at $4,600 has a 10 for 27 head-to-head rate against Senzatela on their careers, which also includes 5 extra base hits. Myers comes into this game also on a 9 for 31 run, which, while Senzatela has been roughed up to the tune of a 305 opposing batting average with a very high whip of 141 as well. Whit Merrifield for $4,400 has a respectable 341 OBP in his last 10 games, but he also enjoys a favorable head-to-head history against Odorizzi at 9 for 21. That includes 5 extra base knocks, 3 of those even home runs. For his part, Odorizzi's allowed 8 homers in his last 47 innings pitched. So I like that, those 2 facts combined. The Yankees face lefty Jose Suarez, who's been less than ordinary in surrendering 22 hits and 15 earned runs over his last 20 innings pitched. He's right for the picking when it comes to the Bombers' big righty power bats. But I also like DJ LeMahieu in this spot as a table setter in the leadoff spot for that lineup. He'll cost you $4,500 and comes into this one on a nice 13 for 43 tear himself. Good for a 302 batting average as part of a 412 OBP.
Matt, you're up.
So I think the field is mostly looking to Coors for the savings because there actually are some big expensive bats there, but there are also some cheaper guys like Connor Joe, Garrett Hampson, guys who could hit near the top of the Rockies lineup, who are really cheap. And then on the Padres side, you have Adam Frazier in the low 4,000s. A couple of their outfielders are in the 4,000s. And then Cleveland has some really cheap outfielders. So I'm kind of trying to stay away from those spots in GPPs due to ownership. And the team that I think will get no love, but actually is in a sneaky good spot, is the Pittsburgh Pirates. So Brian Reynolds is probably my favorite value play on the slate. We're looking at a bullpen game from the Dodgers, probably a bunch of mediocre pitchers. They don't have a really deep bullpen. They have some really good high leverage guys, but the depth of the bullpen isn't great. And Brian Reynolds at 3,300, this is a guy who rightfully made the All-Star game. He's had a great season, and that price tag is just way too low for him. And then you can look even further and see 2,000 flat for Gregory Polanco. Ben Gamel, if he's leading off, I think at 2,000 would be a really good value. Ke'Bryan Hayes is in the 3,000s. So I'll go with the Pirates in general as my value team, and then Reynolds if I have to pick one guy.
All right, Paul, we're going to head over to the DK Sportsbook real quick before you guys take off. What is your favorite baseball bet tonight?
I've got two of them here that I really like. I just touched on the Yankees-Angels matchup and like the over of 8.5 to be smashed early in this one. I highlighted Suarez's recent efforts, and we don't know what Cole is going to look like as he comes off the IL. In fact, I go to the alternate run line and take the over at 10.5 for a nice 175 payoff. I also ripped Matt Harvey earlier, so I'll back that up by taking the Rays to win big versus Baltimore tonight. Even though it's a bullpen game for the home side, that almost plays into a real strength of this club with their deep core of quality relief pitching. This will be a matchup nightmare for Baltimore as a result, and I take the home side to win by more than 3.5 runs for a 165 payoff.
All right, Erik, favorite bet for you?
Yeah, not sure if you guys heard my dog from the other room. Apparently did not like that pick, but maybe she'll like mine, which would be Cleveland at plus 110 over the Twins. Not really sure why Cleveland's the underdog in this one. I guess they've had a worse lineup, but the Twins haven't been good since the break either, 18th by WRC plus. And Cal Quantrill, since the break, has been excellent. Well, at least if you look at just ERA, he's got the best ERA, minimum 20 innings, since the All-Star break at 125. He's not that good, but even the ERA estimators are completely fine. A 3.04 FIP, an xFIP of 4.01. It's basically been league average in strikeouts and walks while keeping the ball on the ground well. That's a completely fine formula. And if that's who he is going forward, he's a solid mid-rotation starter. Griffin Jax, on the other hand, he's coming off a good start against the White Sox. He struck out 10 in a quality start. And even after that, he still has a 5.45 ERA, which looks to be exactly what he deserves, according to most of the ERA estimators. He has the league average walk rate, and that's about as positive as it gets. Doesn't strike people out, doesn't keep the ball on the ground. So given that pretty big gap in pitchers, I don't know why Cleveland should be at plus 110 here.
All right, Matt, bring us home your favorite bet on the DK Sportsbook tonight in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, I'm actually targeting the same game and the same pitcher. The strikeout prop on Griffin Jax, I think, is more appealing to me. He did have that 10 strikeout game last start, but this is a guy who doesn't really have a history of strikeout proficiency at all. His minor league stats, strikeout rates were low. This season, he got up to 6 strikeouts in 2 of his starts, but he's had others where he didn't get any strikeouts even while pitching 5 innings. He's had a couple 2s, a couple 3s. It's been a pretty low strikeout season for Jax, and his whole career in the minors was low strikeouts. He just happened to have this one game against the White Sox last time out where he put up 10. So the strikeout prop is up to 4.5, and I think it's just an overreaction to what he did in this one start the last time out 5 days ago. And I wouldn't really expect him to go over 4.5 strikeouts at any point in the near future with any consistency. So I think a lot of times this happens where a pitcher has a big strikeout game and then there's value in betting the under on them the next time they start.